Hey, yo! What is up, everybody? What is happening? What's going on? Same old stuff, same old stuff. This week was a little better. A little better. Still a lot of stuff going on, though, that's for sure. Still a lot of stuff going on, but give it a few minutes here, let some more people stroll in the stream, and then we'll get going. Jam out a little bit. We gotta check a couple settings here. Cool. All looks good. Never know. Never know. Sometimes it's like a little, you know, I'm a rookie when it comes to this, so it's a little overwhelming at first. I'm like, all right, I gotta boot up this thing, and then this sound thing over here, and then the music's over here, and then this, and it's yeah, hopefully I'm getting better at it every week, though. This is only the third live stream. Only the third live stream, so it's fun though. I had fun talking with you guys, interacting and stuff like that, you know. And then also too, like this is like a good spot for like topics that I want to talk about that I don't want to make like an actual like official full-blown video on, you know. Sometimes like certain topics are better for a more casual setting where you're just chit-chatting, you know what I mean, versus like in the recording studio, you know what I mean. So, but just like all the other all of the past live streams, the other like 2 or 3 that whatever, this is the third one, I think. Yeah. Basically, the format's going to be the same, though. So tonight I have 2 topics to chat about and hopefully interact with you guys about. And then when I get into those topics, though, I'm going to treat it almost like a YouTube video, because then I can clip that discussion and that topic, and then I can post it as its own separate video. That way, if somebody doesn't stick around for, you know, the hour and a half live stream, that they still get something. They still get something out of it. They can kind of, you know, stay up to speed. What am I drinking? This is coffee with Chris Bumstead makes this maple protein that is the best protein powder flavor that I think I've ever tried. So it's his stuff mixed in with some iced coffee. And yes, I am a little concerned that it's too late for coffee, you know? But I'm almost getting to that age now anyways, where I don't really sleep all night, which is like driving me crazy, because I used to just lay down and just out. And then I became a business owner. And I think that changed things a little bit. There's a whole lot of different stresses when it comes to owning a business, you know? So, and also I got a lot of things in the fire right now too, you know? Like I have my business, so I run a jiu-jitsu school, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym. And then there's the YouTube stuff, right? So I'm kind of always like, thinking about ideas and topics that I want to talk about, planning. So I plan a video every week, right? Then I film the video and I edit it. And then I plan the live stream, which we're doing right now. And then I don't have to edit that, which is nice. But if I do clip those 2 videos, then I have to edit those a little bit. But, and then I have a book that I finished writing, and it's now off to like the editor publisher service. I don't really know exactly what to call them. So, like sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night to, take a piss, and then I am thinking about other things, and I can't get back to sleep. Never used to be a problem. Used to sleep like a baby. Used to be dead to the world, and that was when in theory, I had more stress, but I don't know. Like I said, I think it's once you start working for yourself, like the uncertainties, all of those uncertainties that you could just kind of be like, I don't know, my boss will handle it. Once they become your uncertainties, they wake you up in the middle of the night. So that's all I got to say about that. But yeah, so yeah, I'm drinking coffee, which is probably not a good idea. But yeah. So we're still feeling the residual effects from last week, that's for sure. Like my YouTube feed is absolutely just full of Charlie Kirk stuff. And like just packed. A lot of conspiracy theories going on, and I get it, because some of the stuff is like a little bizarre. It's like, so you're telling me he shoved a full-length rifle down his pants, jumped onto a roof, or assembled the rifle on the roof, and then took a shot, and then like within 6 seconds, because like there's the time of the shot, and then there's like the time that the footage has him jumping down off the side of the roof, and I think it's only like a matter of seconds, definitely not minutes, And so this guy breaks this rifle down, I guess, in that amount of time, and then jumps off the roof, and then assembles it again and hides it in like some bushes or whatever. But he forgot his screwdriver on the roof, which I'm assuming you need to break the rifle down and put it back together again. So like, how did he put it back together again on the ground before he put it? Why would he even do that? I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. And like, I think a lot of times, like with anything, even if there's like no actual conspiracy, whenever there's conflicting evidence or like conflicting narratives, that leaves like the room in the middle for all the conspiracies, like that is like where that's how they get fertilized, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like sprinkle a conspiracy theory with some conflicting narratives, and it's like boom, full blown, But either way, it's definitely odd. And then like the fallout has been interesting too. And again, I'm not even gonna claim that I agree with it or disagree with it or whatever. We're just talking about what is happening now to kind of catch people up to speed if they somehow live under a rock. There's been like this big backlash of people that celebrated and criticized, celebrated, and mostly the celebration part of Charlie Kirk's assassination have been like losing their jobs and stuff like that. And it is what it is. And some people kind of go with the freedom of speech thing, you know, they're like, well, freedom of speech. And no, like, you're not going to jail for saying bad things about somebody. But I think what's happening is like, employers and stuff don't want to be associated with a certain type of person because it looks bad, right? The negative press that they receive. It's kind of like how advertisers don't want to run commercials on certain YouTube channels because they don't want their brand to be represented and show up on like a YouTube channel that has conflicting views or opinions and stuff like that. So all in all, I don't think it comes down to freedom of speech. I think it's really like money makes the world go round. And when a company is facing a whole bunch of backlash for something that one employee said in bad taste, they're just like, yeah, let's just get rid of you. You know, let's go on. We'll just hire another teacher or whatever, another bus driver or another this or another that. It's like the easier solution for the company. And I think like I don't know all the details, but I'm pretty sure Jimmy Kimmel got let go or his show got canceled today. And you know, people have their opinions on that, and I listened to what he said, and the joke isn't that bad. You know what I mean? Like, the joke is just, it's more making fun of Donald Trump. But I think what they're using to, or what they used to get rid of him, was essentially that he said that the shooter was a MAGA representative or whatever. And I think it's pretty clear that he wasn't. And so I think like people have, I think that's what he's getting hung up for. You know, they're like, why are you even trying to spread that narrative or whatever? You know, I don't know. Maybe it'll shake out in the future a little bit and it will turn out that he was correct, but I don't think so. Like, just judging by what we do know, that doesn't really seem like representative of a far right MAGA character, you know? So, but yeah, so people are like, free speech. It's like, yeah, well, again, I don't think the ratings for the show have been very good anyways. And then you have ABC, like, they're trying to do a deal and they're trying to make money, and then they're like, oh my God, what did he say? This is not the time for that. We're going to take so much heat for that. This show's not even doing very well. You know, bye. And same thing with Colbert. Like, I think all those like late night talk show things haven't really been doing great for a while, because most of the time, like, it's like the same cookie cutter, lowbrow, just bullshit. You know what I mean? And I don't think anybody really finds it entertaining anymore. The jokes were never funny. So, and people kind of can get their entertainment somewhere else. Before, it was like the only thing you could watch on TV. You know what I mean? Like, you're not ready for bed yet, but there's really nothing on TV, so you might as well flip it on to Jay Leno and listen to him yap a little bit before you go to bed. But now there's so many different options with YouTube and everything like that. Then, you know, people can choose. They can choose their media and they can choose where they're getting things from, and you know, they're not choosing to watch those shows. So it is what it is, you know? It is what it is. So the two topics that I want to talk about tonight, we'll get into them in a minute here. One is what I'm calling the othering of America. I'll explain what that is, and you probably can kind of put it together on your own. And then the other topic is just individuals that are terminally online, which is like another phrase that's, I don't know, more common now. More people know what I'm talking about when I say like, yeah, I think that person is just like terminally online. And also just like, it's just not good. It's not good for our health, you know, to be that connected. We'll talk about that here in a minute though. All right. Okay. So I had to send a little text message there. Apologies. Okay. So take a little sip here. All right. So the othering of America. I wrote down some notes here, even though I don't think I'm going to need them. But essentially, this is something that has been going on for a long time, and it's definitely not something that is specific to America, right? The title just sounded good, The Othering of America. But in reality, it's something that humans do subconsciously. It's in our nature to do this, and for better or worse. That's the other thing. When I give these examples, I'm not saying that I think they're right or I think they're wrong. I'm just going to point to a couple points in history where there's been some othering going on, right? So othering simply means treating fellow citizens or individuals as outsiders or enemies. And when you think about it, like from an evolutionary point of view, it makes complete sense. Like our brains are wired this way for survival. So it's kind of a little bit like leftover wiring. We haven't evolved enough to no longer have this way of thinking, but needless to say, it's still there. And let's just go back, say like caveman days, it was used to quickly identify others, meaning people that were not inside of your tribe, right? You know, walk through the jungle, hacking and slashing, whatever, you come up over a ridge and there's another person standing there, and your brain needed to instantly recognize if that person was one of the people in your small, whatever, 10 to 20 person tribe. Instantly. Boom. Oh, that's Bob. Or, ugh, I don't know that person, right? Because it was a violent time back then, right? And a lot of times when you would run into an other, the outcome wasn't great. Like, we didn't have civilized society back then. So if you had something that other person wanted, they could try to take it from you. They could try to kill you. They could try to murder you. They could try to follow you back to wherever the tribe is and take all that stuff and raid you, and horrible stuff happened, right? And so our brains have evolved to make that snap judgment very quickly. And it doesn't really, I would say, I don't want to say that it's no longer needed in society, because I think it is. Like, your gut feeling definitely tells you something, but the smarter way we need to approach it is just realizing that our brain does it. you know? So then when you get heated and you're pointing the finger at somebody else and you're blaming everything on somebody else, it's important to stop and say, am I othering this person? Or do I have a point here? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Because sometimes other people do things that are not good, and you should be able to point out that those actions and the fact that they're not like you should be irrelevant, because it's like, well, just because they do something and I don't do that, doesn't mean I just have to respect it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Like, you murder babies or you hang people from trees. Oh, yeah, well, that's you. You do you. No, it's like, wrong is still wrong, but having the ability to point it out to yourself and kind of run it through that filter first makes a difference. So this has happened to every kind of group in America, I'll say, but in the world, right? People have been othered, I'll say, for racial reasons, religious reasons, political, economical, class, everything like that, right? Every reason that somebody is different from another group has been used to make that divide. It's just the way it is. Let's go slavery, right? I mean, that's like probably one of the things that people think of right away. So there's slavery. And then along the way, so we go, okay, so let's think of it this way. All right, so slavery. In order to own slaves, the slave owners had to look at the other people, the slaves, as less than, and not human, animals, all these terms. We'll get into terminology here in a little bit. So immediately the slave owners buying the slaves looked at the slaves as others. But the tribe that ran around and caught all of those slaves, they had their reasons for thinking those slaves, that other tribe, deserved to be rounded up, caught, and sold into slavery. So it's like you just go back probably to the end of the beginning of time and find the others of the groups, right? Native Americans, we dehumanized them. We called them savages because they were different. They didn't have the technology that we did, and they looked different, and all that stuff. So it was a lot back then. It was really easy to look at them and say, "Oh, you're not like us, and in our mind, we're more superior. So you're the others." But it even happened to, white people, like Irish and Italian immigrants. Like they were depicted as criminals, animals. They were like, the butt of jokes in political cartoons and newspapers and stuff like that. They face discrimination, just like colored individuals, Native Americans, all these different races, right? It literally doesn't matter. They were even lynched for their ethnicity and their religion. I think we forget about that sometimes, right? So, Japanese, right? The Japanese during World War II with the internment camps. Excuse me. After Pearl Harbor, we automatically suspected them of being traitors, right? Regardless of evidence. They were the others. And back then, I think it was easier to pick out others because it was usually like the minority, right? There wasn't as many. So it's like, all right, we have the majority. So the minorities, They must be the others. But then, like, McCarthyism and the Red Scare, you know, that whole communist. You had neighbors pointing the fingers at other neighbors saying, I think they're communists, with like no evidence, and people were losing their jobs just for having the word communist pointed in their direction, right? I mean, shit. Post 9/11, just Islamophobia, whatever you want to call it, the divide there and how we looked at the Islamic religion and area of the world, that was definitely an othering moment for sure. And again, I'm not even going into like, are these justified? Are they not justified? I'm just saying these are countless moments in history where at the time the people felt that they had enough evidence and justification to label another group of people as others and outside of the tribe. I mean, even again, like poor people in, geez, still like Appalachian Mountains, Appalachia, or the South, hillbillies, right? White trash. It goes on and on. Like, it just literally goes on and on. I think one of the things that makes this possible is the language that's used. Like when I talked about Native Americans, savages, or slaves being called animals, right? Terminology that makes the people inferior. I think that's like the beginning of the process of othering people. You give them a label, and then you start coming up with terminologies that dehumanize them and make them inferior, and then it's like a sliding scale, right? Because that paves the way for harsher treatment. Like, just let's look at the way we called slaves animals. Well, what do we do to animals? We slaughter them. We eat them. They stay outside. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not like a vegan or anything, but I'm just saying, like, we tend to treat animals different than we do humans, right? So it's like knocking them a peg down. It's like, all right, well, if we can slaughter animals and we can treat animals bad or whatever and not really worry about their well-being, then why don't we, oh, well, let's just do it to these slaves too. You know? It kind of creates this cycle. And the problem that we're having today is, you know, we're hearing a lot about, oh, we got to cool down the rhetoric. Well, it's like, what are we talking about exactly, the rhetoric? I think the biggest thing is the terminology that we've started to throw around casually is extreme terminology. Even the word extreme. I would love to, if I was a little better at this, I could look up like Google Trends and be like, I want to see when the increase in the word extreme started. You know? Because even the use of extreme has become extreme, you know? Like extreme, the extreme right, the far left, the radical this, you know, the radical that. And it's like, all right. When you throw that label in front of something, I'm expecting something extreme to come after it. And sometimes it doesn't. But when you hear it enough, this is extreme, this is extreme, this is extreme, it starts to sort of like warp what is extreme. You know, before you thought you had a grasp on it, you're like, okay, this is extreme. Shooting somebody, killing, murder, riots. That's extreme. Now you're like, so, like, calling somebody sort of not the right term, but not a hate term either, is extreme rhetoric. I don't know, just Nazi, fascist, racist, bigot, homophobic, transphobic. Good thing this video isn't monetized, because it probably would have been demonetized just for even saying all those words in one one fell swoop, you know? And then on the other side, it's, you know, lunatics, radicals, like all this verbiage is redefining things. Like the fact that so many people are being called Nazis, for one thing, that's a very othering way to do it, because like majority of society, vast majority of society, doesn't think Nazis were good, right? I mean, 9 out of 10 people are like, yeah, fuck Nazis, right? Okay. Well, now maybe you have a group of people that keep calling your neighbor a Nazi. You're like, really? Are they a Nazi? No. They're not in the general sense. But the term is shifting. It's like fluid. It's like it used to mean this, and it used to have a definition, and it used to actually stand for a specific thing. And now it's like a term that gets thrown around way too casual, even though it's an extreme term, to label so many non-extreme things. So then it's like, well, yeah, of course you can get a whole bunch of people to hate Nazis. Really easy to other a group of Nazis, right? But when the term is applied to just like, I don't know, people that aren't Nazis, but maybe just a little bit of a disagreement happens, it can definitely ramp things up. And that's not good, you know? Because like last live stream when I was talking about mental health, you know, America's mental health is not in a good spot. I don't know about the rest of the world, but America's mental health is definitely not in the right spot. So then when you have all of these terms being thrown around, Nazi, racist, you know, a crazy person, they can start believing it. Yeah, those are the others. You're right. Those are the others. Yes. Yeah, those are the others. They're not like me. They're not like us. Those are the others. Let's go get them. You know? And then boom, violence happens. And then the other side, not kind of the others, but the other side is like, what the heck? You know, you did this thing, and it just like the divide continues to grow. And nothing good ever comes of that. Now, again, like we can have this conversation, and I want to have this other conversation too, probably next live stream. I want to talk about the death of nuance, right? And I can't help it. I'm going to get into it a little bit. So, because I think it's like part of the othering of America. I literally just commented on a YouTube video before I jumped on the live stream, and it was actually about the Jimmy Kimmel, right? Like getting let go. And somebody commented on there about how like their whole take was that the joke really wasn't that offensive, and he shouldn't have been let go for that. And my comment was, I don't really think it was about the joke, because it wasn't really that bad. I think it was the subtle disinformation about the shooter being MAGA that probably did it. Nowhere in that statement did I say that I think it should have happened or that I agreed that he got let go. I was just breaking down what happened and which part of this event had more to do with him getting let go. And this person was like, they did this classic thing, said, if that's your take, then you're part of the problem. Like, what take did I have? I didn't really have a take. I didn't say that, yeah, I think he should have, or even what he said was wrong. I was just saying, I don't think it really had to do with the joke. I think it had to do more with this. No nuance anymore. Nope. That was like, I might as well have like shot flares into the air. I'm one of the others. And that commenter's like, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, chill out. Like, I didn't say I think it should happen. I was just saying, I think it had more to do with, I think it had more to do with his comment about, the political leanings of the shooter that I think probably got him canned, But so anyways, that is what othering is. And both sides of the political aisle right now have absolutely been othering the shit out of each other. It doesn't lead to anything good, legit, like the Holocaust, Nazis othered the Jews, and they needed to do that in order to treat them the way that they did. They othered them to a point where they could shove them in cattle cars and send them off to a gas chamber. That's how much they othered them, right? So all I urge is, when you get really upset about another group of people because they believe something differently than you, or they look differently than you, or they act differently than you, I'm not saying you're not justified for getting upset. I'm not saying you're not justified for believing whatever you believe, but just try to run it through your filter in your mind and say, is this just old wiring in my brain that is identifying differences and making me draw a line in the sand and not having like a clear head to actually evaluate things. Okay? That's all I ask. That's all anybody can really do. That's all any of us can do. But it's so important. It's so important. Yeah. I don't know. What's your thoughts? Drop a comment. Shoot me a chat. The othering of America. Just a minute, we'll hop on. We'll go on to the next topic here, which is going to be about being terminally online and just what it's doing to everybody. Specifically a certain age group. You know what I mean? Not everybody's terminally online. You don't see a lot of like 70-year-olds terminally online. It tends to be a certain age, a certain demographic. But yeah, drop me a comment. Do you think especially lately, that America has been putting people, others, into groups and drawing a line in the sand and just saying, no, I'm done. You are too different from me. I want nothing to do with it. All right. Bada boom, bada boom. Okay. So, all right. So I think we have a problem in the world. Definitely we have a problem in America with what I would call the terminally online culture. Someone who's immersed in internet culture to the point where it starts to warp their worldview. That is like kind of how I would define terminally online. Like they start to filter their reality through trends, memes, like arguments, and the friggin' algorithm that we know feeds everybody rage. So these people that are terminally online, I think a lot of them, well, it's just going to be more, right? It's going to be more and more. But what I would say, like, I'm 42. God, I'm almost 43. People that are older than me, most are not people that I would say are terminally online because it's just not their generation. And I think my generation may be one of the last ones that would not be considered terminally online, because I think we were old enough to develop habits and like develop our sense of self prior to the internet coming. And now other kids these days are literally just born and raised on the internet. And I know, like you know, the internet is a dark place. Dark, right? So you have more and more kids these days that actually don't really go out and interact. They go to school, but during the pandemic, they didn't, you know? And for some of them, those were like the formative years for socialization. You know, they're like juniors, freshmen, you know, in high school, and all of a sudden they have to stay at home and they can't go to school because of the pandemic. And now it funneled them into the internet even more than they already were, right? Because I think they most likely were headed that direction anyways, but then the pandemic like sped it up. So these younger generations, they go to school, they come home, they don't even really hang out with friends anymore. Like they do, but it's like through their phone. If you want to, not very many kids like go over to each other's houses anymore. It's like, why would we do that? We could just like play video games. I'll be at my house and I'll play video games, and Johnny will be at his house and he'll play video games, and we'll like talk to each other through it or whatever, but we don't like need to be in the same room. That's like, I remember when we would have LAN parties, and we would like literally bring our computers or our Xboxes over to our friend's house and set it up. We would play video games, but we'd be like in the same room, you know, and that's gone. There's no need for it now, you know. So anyways, this group of kids are just more subject to this. They're more susceptible to this terminally online culture. And I think it really raises some issues. Anxiety, fear. The way the algorithm works is like not for a long time, but in the beginning, people thought the algorithm created echo chambers, right? Where you would only really like, if you flip it through Instagram, you would only see, or maybe I'll use TikTok as an example better. So you're scrolling through TikTok, and the way we thought it worked in the beginning was that it would only show you videos that you liked, right? And so if you had a certain viewpoint on something, you would then think, well, you're going to get more videos on that viewpoint to sort of like cement that idea that you think. But in reality, no. Somewhere along the line, they realize that it's much more engaging for the algorithm to feed you things that make you mad. Okay? So say you have like a very strong belief in I don't freaking know, like that Toyota Tacomas are the best truck ever, right? You're like, I'll like go to my grave believing that. And for whatever reason, you like hate Ford owners. Well, would the algorithm feed you videos of Toyota Tacomas being awesome? No. What it would do is feed you videos of like Ford trucks pulling Tacomas out of ditches just to get you mad, because you'll watch it and you'll try to figure out why that happened. And then you like engage with comments and you go back and forth with people. So that's not good for your overall well-being, right? And that was just like a really stupid example that I just gave. But now let's ramp it up some. Let's say you're a conservative Christian and your algorithm keeps feeding you the farthest left characters that you could even like possibly think up, right? It is going to make your blood boil because it's a clash of ideas, but not in a constructive way. It's like way to the extreme. So in a way, it reinforces your original belief, but not in a healthy way, in a way that fucking pisses you off. It makes you mad. So now you're scrolling and you're like, yeah, see, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. But when you put the phone down and you look around, that's actually not how the world works. Like, there's not that many of those people around. Do they exist? Yes. Are they real? Yes. But your algorithm, your feed would make you think that every person in your town other than you is that way or feels that way or thinks that way. So that leads to this spike in anxiety and fear in these younger demographics, right? Like small, isolated incidents, they get magnified into existential threats, right? This one little thing happens and the internet blows up. That's all they're talking about. Reddit is just like drooling on their keyboards, posting shit post after shit post about this topic. But I guarantee you, if you walk down to your local Dunkin' Donuts and listen to what people were talking about, 9 times out of 10, they're not talking about that issue that all the online groups and stuff are talking about. So it starts to warp the reality for young people. I don't even want to call them kids, you know, because they might not even be kids. They might just be like young. So I'm just going to read a chat here. People older than you look longer than you and are billionaires. They suck all your energy up IRL. That's why you age. That's true. It's the 1%. It feeds off of you and it feeds you. Everyone is just energy cattle to something they can't see. That's interesting. I mean, I get what you're saying. At first, I thought you were going to call me old, say that I looked old. And I'm like, I am old. And I feel old sometimes. Yeah, so back to this. Terminally Online. There was a study that was posted in the Journal of Adolescent Health in 2024. Over 50% of the participants reported a positive link between social media use and anxiety. Another one. After colleagues gained access to Facebook, there was a 20% increase in anxiety disorders. That was reported by MIT Sloan 2022. During COVID, 55.4, it's very specific, reported moderate to high anxiety tied to social media news exposure. Oh my God. Yeah, remember that? Remember that? That was so... It's surging. The surge is happening. The surge. I'm like, I swear to God, unless somebody's ordering a soda, after that, I never wanted to hear the word surge again. I got so freaking sick of it. But it was like the mainstream news' way of just like getting those views, you know what I mean? Getting those clicks. Tune in to see what's surging tonight, right? So again, it distorts the perception of reality. I think oftentimes, like here's an example. People will think society is collapsing because Twitter is fighting about an issue. And they'll be fighting about an issue that most people don't even know is happening, you know? But the algorithm will feed that perception. And so then if you, like, let's think about this. If you think that walking outside, you're going to get mugged and stabbed, right? I just did a video on the person that got stabbed in the neck on the train in North Carolina, right? So if your algorithm, your feed is just full of that stuff happening, you most likely will think, or at least fear, going outside more because you've seen all of that stuff and your brain automatically wants to say, ooh, that stuff is out there and it's real. Guess what? It is out there and it is real. But your algorithm makes you think you're just going to be on the train dodging knives, right? It's just not reality. It is, but it isn't. And I think that's the hard part. It just warps, just takes reality and it kind of just tweaks it a little bit, just a little bit. It's like, yep, people are getting stabbed. But let's crank it up to 10. So now everybody thinks they're going to get stabbed. So then people start to, like, I'm talking about young people, right? They start to avoid social situations out of fear or conflict or judgment. They kind of constantly edit how they speak. They kind of self-censor themselves because they're looking at it through how Reddit would view them. How many upvotes would they get if they said this thing? Well, if I change the way I say it, I'll get more upvotes. So maybe that is also how I should do it in real life. You know? I definitely think it increases distrust. They expect more hostility from strangers. Stranger danger. Stranger danger. And like we were talking in the last topic about othering, there's that sense of tribalism. They cling to that community that's on the other side of the screen, right? And they go home from school and maybe they jump on Discord and they join a group and there's a bunch of people there that have the same opinion as they do. They're kind of like friends, but they're not really friends because they're also strangers, which is really weird. It's like a really weird blend, right? Fact. More than 1 in 10 adolescents show problematic, addictive-like social media behavior. That was World Health Organization 2024. So again, this terminally online business leads to more isolation, more loneliness, which reinforces the need to be online for validation. Anxiety starts to spiral. Fear leads to withdrawal. Withdrawal leads to more screen time. Screen time magnifies fear. We see in this like cycle, right? Another study. Cutting back social media to 30 minutes a day led to significantly lower anxiety, depression, loneliness, and FOMO, fear of missing out. I almost thought it was fuck around and find out, which I guess would kind of be the same. So that study was Iowa State 2022. Another study, passive scrolling correlates with higher social anxiety, while active use, posting, interacting can reduce it. That's interesting. So what that one's saying is like you're just mindlessly scrolling and that can actually raise your anxiety. But if you purposefully interact with it, it can chill you out a little bit more. I'd like to dig into that one a little bit. That one's interesting. APA warns news-related stress. That's like, it's like a diagnosis. APA warns of news-related stress when constantly exposed to distressing online news. Yeah, no shit, right? You watch a whole bunch of horrible stuff, and oftentimes your brain can't really, it can't realize that you're not in current danger. And I think some people are more reactive than others. Like I can think about something stressful and I can feel my heart rate raise. I can look at my watch and be like, I'm having a physiological response to this thought that is stressing me out. But my physiological response is fight or flight. It doesn't know that I'm laying in bed, covered up with a blanket, with a fan on me, and scrolling. Like all I'm doing is moving my finger like this, but my body gets the response that there's a friggin' lion about to attack me. It doesn't know the difference. So when you're online all the time and you're constantly seeing these things that either make you mad, stress you out, give you anxiety, make you fearful, your body is just going through it. You know, it's struggling, but it's like, I don't know what's going on, but for whatever reason, we have to survive. So it doesn't realize that it's you actually doing it to yourself. So now here's another part that I think plays into this. And I think this leads to like the radicalization stuff. So there's definitely a specific time, and I remember I was like this. I remember probably everybody is like this. I would say it's like mostly college, but I would say like the first 1 to 3 years of college, like it felt so good to feel like you were fighting for change, taking a stand, like making your mark on the world, right? And I remember like 9/11 happened and the war in Iraq was kicking off, excuse me, all that stuff. Like that was when people of my generation were like, you know, radicalizing around something. Some people were like, we shouldn't go to war, and some people were like, we should go to war, and whatever, right? But I remember feeling this feeling of like my actions could lead to change. And it's a sad thought when you get older and you realize that it really doesn't. Most of the time, it really doesn't, you know? But back then, your brain's not even fully formed. And in some cases, it does lead to change. But I guess what I'm saying is like everybody thinks they're a revolutionary individual during that period of their life. And during that period of their life happens to be when they leave home, typically, they're no longer under their parents' guidance. So the world feels huge to them. It feels so many opportunities. Anything is possible, right? But they no longer have this guidance anymore. And they're introduced to a whole bunch of people that most likely are not from their hometown. So they're completely new. There's all these viewpoints. And then all it takes is someone who has an idea that might be a little radical, but it's so easy for that young adult to latch on to that idea. It almost makes me feel like we should raise the minimum age of voting. Like we already know people's reasoning and stuff their brain is not developed when they're 18. So like, are they really going to vote with the best head on their shoulders? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should raise the minimum age of voting, but then decrease the maximum age for presidents. That seems completely reasonable to me. I think you shouldn't be able to vote until you're like 25. And then on the other side, once you're like 60, you know, you shouldn't be able to be president. Or if you're too old to do other jobs and you need to retire at 65, then like maybe the most important job in the country is not for you. That we could just like like sandwich it a little bit more. Hot take, I know. It's funny how the stuff that works against people making a change and doing better for yourself when everyone else is crazy, that feeling. Yeah. Even if you could change the world, the people that are in the world won't ever change. It's very true. And it's almost impossible to see who is cured from this mental and physical development. Yeah. Raise the age to 30. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to 30 either, because here's the other thing too, like all these young kids are out like screaming about how awful their life is, and I'm like, have you even worked a couple shitty jobs yet? Nothing gives you perspective on a good job until you've worked a bunch of shitty jobs. And I think it's like that step is so important to like actually have a realistic view on certain parts of life. How are you going to speak on certain areas of life if you have not actually lived it yet? Like you're like some of them are like getting so wound up over like the minimum wage, right? What the minimum wage should be. Everybody should deserve a minimum wage or a livable wage. And it's like, yeah, I agree, but how many jobs have you worked? You know, like, have you yet? Because the pipeline lately is no job in high school, into college, and then after college, they have their first job. Like, that's more of a trend lately. Like, less high schoolers working. You know, my first job, I think I was like, I might have been a junior in high school or senior in high school, and it was at a Family Dollar. You know what I mean? Like, I just ran the register and stocked the shelves, and it was so boring. And then I worked at McDonald's, and I thought it was an upgrade, and then I didn't, and it was horrible, and all this stuff, you know? So those types of experiences shape your worldview. But if you haven't had experiences yet, how are you going to speak on things? You know, that's just like another reason why I think we should raise the minimum age, you know? But yeah, 25 or 30, I think would be good. For sure. Yeah. Something about internet culture nowadays is just different. You know? The world would be sorry, the text is so small. I have to lean way in. I need another monitor. Okay, I'll get another monitor, and then I can like actually increase the text size. So, pardon me. I'm gonna read. The world would be better if all rental apartments and housing were income based, so they could afford some type of education, even if that's trade school. Well, for one, I think so. Let's see. So when I don't know how old you are, but like again, I'm 42, and when I was growing up, my dad was a drywaller, and my mom, she went to college like late in life, you know, and got like a degree. And for my generation, it was this huge push: go to school, go to college, but don't just go to college for anything. Go for a 4-year degree. Has to be like not trade school, right? My mom literally would tell me, and I don't blame her, because I did. Guess what? I didn't want to be a drywaller, right? But it was like the motivation for me to do well in school was you don't want to end up like your dad having to drywall. It's rough on the body and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. But I think most parents were saying something similar to their children of my my generation. So then now most people went to school and got like a 4-year degree, and now we have this massive lack of trade skills: plumbers, electricians, you know, things that make the world go around. And we have a ton of people with like psychology degrees and things that are important but don't actually help our infrastructure. You know, they don't keep the lights on, so to speak. So I'm a huge proponent of trade schools. You know, for one thing, you can do most of them in 2 years. So it's like half the time you get back, you can boom, get out into the workforce, start working, start contributing to society and all that stuff. Since they're 2 years, you're not paying for 4 years, so it's cheaper and all that stuff. I really, really, really do think that more trade schools, like, that needs to be a push. And I don't have kids, so I have no idea what parents are pushing nowadays, but I really do hope that they are encouraging their kids to look at trade schools before they look at these really expensive 4-year degrees. Now, the thing with rental apartments and housing and stuff being income based, so you know, I don't own my own house. This is an apartment, and I'm currently like looking into building one. And my God, you know, I get the struggle. I'm like, holy wow, that's a lot of money. Even if I find a piece of land and then the house, it's like, I get it. It is very, very tough. And I go back and forth. I'm like, maybe I'll just live in an apartment all, for the rest of my life or whatever. But then part of me is like, no, I want to be able to paint the walls and have a dog or whatever, So like, I get it for sure. The only problem is, so if apartments and houses are all income based, it doesn't really motivate the builders to build more apartments, right? And this is like a really very simple example, okay? All right. You have a builder, or let's just say you have a person and they own a plot of land. It's like 2 acres. And they're like, wow, I have 2 acres of land. What should I do with it? Oh, there's so many options. What should I do? They're like, well, maybe I will make an apartment complex, and then I can like have my investment like working for me and making me money. Okay. But then if there was like some sort of like legislation put in place where it's like, if you actually build an apartment there, you can only charge $500 a month or something low. I don't know. Low, right? Then the builder's like, okay, well, if I build an apartment on this piece of land, like it literally is going to cost me, I don't know, $1.2 million or something. And they're like, okay, so $1.2 million to build this apartment. And I say that, and you're like, whoa, that sounds like a lot. But I'm looking at building a building for my business, and it's not even huge. And the building cost alone, not even the land sale, is going to be like $400,000-$500,000. Okay, so thinking of an apartment complex, that price isn't crazy. Anyways, so then you're like, all right, so I'm going to take out a loan for $1.2 million. I'm going to build this apartment complex, but then I can only charge $500 a month, and there's only 10 units in it. So that is going to take me, I'm bad with math, this many years to pay off my investment before I can even actually start making money off of this property. And then there's the whole like, well, let's say it's going to take like 10 or 15 years to pay off. That's if it's occupied the whole time, which probably isn't going to happen. So that's going to increase that. And then things are deteriorating and breaking down because that's just like what happens, right? Like dishwashers don't last for 20 years. So it's like there's all that. And then it gets to the point where it's like, well, that doesn't really sound like a good deal. I think I'm going to do something else with my land. And again, like I don't have the answers. I'm just like, I can see how it creates problems. Because I love the idea. Like you're like, hey, I want to live here. And they're like, all right, well, what's your income? And you're like, this is my income. And they're like, okay, well, for you, it would be $750 a month. And you're like, all right, cool. Because like the formula is set so that it's 25% of your wages or something like that, Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So, Holly said, or Holly? Holly? I don't know. The government would pay for it with a grant instead of sending all the tax money to war, and it would help healthcare be even cheaper, even free to those with low income. You'll have to make $4,000 a month income for rent to be 600 and pay the rest of the bills alongside with electricity. Yeah, I know. Electricity, water, gas, internet. You'd have extra money in your apartment, especially for a nice apartment. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely is quite apparent lately, especially with like just sort of like the state of the country, that our money does not, like their tax money, does not really come back to benefit us much, you know? Like I commented on this on another video and it's like, or another live stream, and it's like, okay, I work all these hours and I make this money and then I pay this much in taxes. If I'm late paying those taxes, I get penalized and I have to give more money. If I drive 45 miles an hour in a 35, I get pulled over and I get a ticket and I have to pay more money. If I get too many tickets, I lose my license and I can't go to work anymore. You know, there's all of these like stipulations and requirements and hoops and laws and more laws and more laws. But then on the flip side, it's very odd because I have to do all that stuff, but then like I have to still be worried about getting stabbed in Walmart or on the train or whatever, you know? And you're like, wait a minute, like I'm paying so much money. I should be able to do these basic things without worrying, you know? Like, again, like, where's the money going? Like, I can't, it's hard to find a house. It's hard to afford one. But you better not be late on those taxes or they're fucking coming for you, you know? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything you're saying sounds really great. I'm not an economist or the president or anything like that. So I wish it was simple. And it's not that I guess like it's not that it's not simple. It's not that it's not simple if we started that way from the beginning. The not simple part comes from having to change the current system, you know? And that is where a lot of the complexity comes from. In the very beginning, when we were like founding the country, if we were like, let's do it this way. And then society built around that, I think we could have done that, you know? But now it's like trying to turn this massive barge, this massive ship, and turning it and going the opposite direction just doesn't happen like that. And it's just like way more complicated than it should be, to be honest. I still have hope, though. Yeah. I think, I mean, you know what's crazy is like the problem is so simple. We knew this a long time ago. Money is the root of all evil. Like, point blank, you know? But I think that I often think about this. I don't know why I think about this, but I have this thought sometimes where I'm like, you know what? If we hit the reset button, boop, on like reality, right? And it started back up again. How many things would play out the same way, and how many things would be different? Like, and I think I thought about this before, but for whatever reason, there's this guy called Steve Ranella, and he has like a hunting podcast and stuff like that, and he thinks along the same way. And maybe he put this thought in my head, and I just thought about it more, but this stuck with me. He was like, sometimes I wonder if we hit the reset button on everything and started over again, if we would all still be wearing pants, or if we would have come up with something better. And I think that's like a really funny, it made me laugh. So like, that's probably why it stuck with me. But I think about that often. And so my thought is like, money is the root of all evil. But if we were to restart it again, I think something like money would happen again. Now, whether we would all be running around like hoarding seashells or something, I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I think some form of currency, I feel pretty confident that it would pop up every single time, every single reset, it would show up somehow. But in a way, it's infected everything. It's the media reports based on who their donors are, and that influences what we hear and how we shape our reality and how we interact with people. And everywhere you look, if you kind of like peek behind the curtain, money drives it, which is crazy. I just had something happen to me. I put out a video on the channel about how to deal with conflict, right? And in my opinion, it was very level-headed. It was like, you don't want to be super passive, and you don't want to be the person that goes looking for fights. I felt like I threaded a middle ground, right? And in that video, I explained, like, I go to the gym. I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 20 years. I carry tools to help defend myself, right? And I'm like, those are the things that I have prepared personally, so that if I ever come into the situation where I have to fight, then at least I'm capable of doing it, right? I thought it was a very balanced take. And once the video went live, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna promote the video. I'm gonna throw like $10 at it, and I'm gonna promote it because it was doing pretty well, like likes and views or whatever. I was like, I think the message is good. So I went to promote it. And I get so YouTube is owned by Google, and I get this message from Google, or this email from Google, that it was the promotion was declined or disapproved or something, and the reasoning was like extreme language, shocking content, promotion of violence, or something like that. I was like, what? It's because I used certain words and talked about certain things, and it all comes down to money, right? Because they don't want to lose advertisers, so they don't want people on the platform talking about certain things and stuff like that. But I'm like, my point of view was very tame, like I thought it was like a good message. Like the message was like, hey, don't be a dick, But since I used certain terms or whatever, it got flagged by the algorithm. And again, it all comes back to money, which is shitty, because we live in this like cucked society now where you literally can't even talk about defending yourself. And somebody's like, "Oh, you better calm down, you radical." You better chill out. But anyways. All right, that about wraps it up. Ooh, hey, you're chill out, camera. Must not have liked what I said. Yeah, that about wraps it up for tonight. So yeah, I think I know next week we'll be streaming same time, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think one of the concepts I'm going to talk about is the death of nuance. So appreciate all your comments. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, I don't know how you're watching this if you haven't subscribed, but if you haven't, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And I will catch you guys next week.